When we think about sci-fi universes, we only often think about starships, interstellar travel, and battles that happen in the void of space. But even here, there is always an element of terrestrial warfare that occur in the exoplanets of these many different universes. So here in this video, we will assess the ground infantry of 4 human political entities of 4 different sci-fi franchises, namely the UNSC Marines from Halo, the Starfleet ground forces of Star Trek, the Astra Militarum of Warhammer 40K, and the Imperial army of Star Wars. We will not include the superhuman elements like the Force users, the Sith, the Astartes, or the Spartans. We will, however, take a look at the numbers of soldiers each of them can field in a planetary surface battle, the types of weapons they use, the main ground and air vehicles, and their different combat doctrines. So in short, we will discuss which of these has the most powerful ground infantry forces. Let's get to it. Starting with Star Wars, the Imperial Army, also known as the Imperial Forces, was the land-based branch of the Galactic Empire's military. As the ultimate evolution of the Grand Army of the Republic, created during the Clone Wars, the Imperial Army quickly established the Empire's dominance across the galaxy, utilizing highly trained soldiers, mechanized walkers, and overwhelming numbers. Operating in coordination with the Imperial Navy, the Imperial Army relied entirely on the Navy's fleet to transport legions of troopers to distant parts of the galaxy. The primary soldiers of the Empire's ground forces were known as Imperial Army troopers, who served as the core infantry tasked with enforcing the Imperial regime and pacifying rebellious worlds. Next, for the Warhammer 40K universe, we have the Astra Militarum, or also known as the Imperial Guard. It is the largest cohesive fighting force in this galaxy, serving as the primary military force and the first line of defense for the Imperium of Man in the 41st millennium. It is composed of countless billions of men and women, organized into hundreds of thousands of regiments, supported by a vast array of light and heavy armored vehicles that provide significant offensive capabilities. The Astra Militarum is typically the first to respond to threats when a world's planetary defense force fails. They are also garrisoned in major strategic locations within the Imperium and often serve in both offensive and defensive roles. Backed by legions of heavy armor and powerful artillery, the Imperial Guard wages thousands of relentless battles at any given time for the survival of humanity, fighting the forces of chaos, the heretics, and the Xenos at the same time. In Star Trek, however, we have the Starfleet Ground Forces, which is the branch of the Starfleet dedicated to ground-based combat. The ground forces use a departmental structure similar to Starfleet, with divisions such as Command, Operations, and Sciences. They also have specialized units beyond ordinary infantry. Additionally, they maintain electronic warfare units tasked with intercepting and jamming enemy transmissions, including transporters, and ensuring the ground forces' communications reach their intended destinations. They are less in number, but they are still effective. And lastly, in Halo, the main army is the UNSC Marine Corps, which is a branch of the United Nations Space Command. It is responsible for conducting land-based expeditionary planetary combat operations. They leverage the mobility provided by the UNSC Navy to deploy forces rapidly everywhere in the galaxy. Marines are also tasked with defending naval assets and installations from hostile forces, mainly from the Covenant and later from the Forerunners. Structured under the Unified Ground Command, the UNSC Marine Corps also works closely with the UNSC Naval Command and holds some authority within its office. This Marine Corps is one of the 5 uniformed services branches of the UNSC Armed Forces and the biggest one focused on terrestrial warfare. Now that we are all caught up with what these different sci-fi armies, their organizations are all about in a nutshell, let's take a look at the soldiers up close. So starting with the Imperial Army Trooper, they are the standard infantry soldiers of the Galactic Empire of Star Wars. When it comes to numbers, the Imperial Army's largest element was called the Sector Army, which numbered around 1.5 million fighting men. There are a total of 1,024 sectors in the galaxy, and if each of them have their own sector armies, then that comes to 1.5 billion army troopers, including the stormtroopers. Then we have the logistics such as medical services, technicians, engineers, and so on. If we are generous and say that for every trooper there are 3 support personnel, then we get an army of 4.5 billion spread across the entire galaxy. Now there are on average 50 planets per sector, as defined by the Republic and later carried on by the Empire. So if a sector army has 1.5 million men, it would on average be able to spare 30,000 army troopers for a battle in a single planet, and with a support staff the number would go up to around 100,000 in total. For Star Trek, the only viable numbers we have here are from the Dominion War. At the start of this conflict, the Starfleet's ground forces numbered 200,000, which was rapidly increased to 250,000 after the scope of the war was seen to be greater than expected. By the end of the war, the ground forces had lost over 105,000 soldiers, but due to recruitment from various worlds during the conflict, it still had around 174,000 combat personnel in active service. This number is for the entire Federation space, which means on average, Starfleet will be able to deploy just a couple of thousand of infantry soldiers on any single planetary battle. For Halo, large numbers of both men and women are employed by the UNSC Marine Corps. As of October 2559, the UNSC Marine Corps had 6.75 million active members. UNSC Marines are described as the shield of humanity, while the Spartans are the spear. Of course, there are planets like Earth and Reach, which have a planetary defense force numbering in the hundreds of millions, but overall the rest of the human planets spread all over the galaxy were barely populated. The UNSC Marine Corps would quite often send out chunks of their soldiers to fight in other planets under an expeditionary force. This organization of Marines is listed as the largest deployable unit above a division, with their total force being around 40 to 50,000 Marines strong. But they can also be deployed in Marine Expeditionary Brigades, which are smaller and commanded by a brigadier general, and they were about 16,000 Marines strong, which makes them small but arguably effective. In the grimdark, the numbers alone is shocking. There are countless billions of guardsmen in service, with some sources saying that the number are actually in the trillions, so many that even the Departamento Militarum cannot ascertain their exact number. These are ordinary men and women of the Imperium called to serve the God Emperor of mankind and defend his realm against all threats. The recruitment or conscription and training of these guardsmen are dictated by the customs and traditions of their native homeworld, based on the tithe imposed on each planetary governor to send out regiments, which are as large as divisions in modern day. With a million worlds in the Imperium, there are a million different ways to become a guardsman, and for each planet, for either defense or for an invasion, tens of millions of guardsmen would be deployed. So here in the numbers game, we have in ascending order Starfleet with a couple of thousand of deployable troops in an average planetary battle. Then comes the UNSC Marines with 40 to 50,000 personnel in an expeditionary force. Then Star Wars Imperial troopers, which would number less than 100,000 per planet in a sector army. And finally Warhammer, which would field around tens of millions of soldiers in an average planetary conflict. Now numbers is nothing without proper weapons. So let's take a look at the battle gear these soldiers are equipped with, their standard gear and weaponry. Again, beginning with Star Wars, the Imperial Army troopers have armor, and it consists of shoulder plates, bicep armor, a breastplate, and a helmet with goggles. These armor plates are composed of plastoids that are bulletproof but not blasterproof, so anything with a 50 caliber round or armor piercing can easily penetrate these plates. The troopers' weaponry includes the E10, E10.5 and E11 blaster rifles as standard, with heavier weaponry carried by selected troopers. The bolts fired from these blasters would be entirely indefensible against by modern armor on an infantry level, so it can pierce anything that we have now. It can even penetrate lightly armored vehicles and has an effective range of around 100 meters, which can be extended to 300 meters with a very low rate of fire. So that is what an average army trooper packs in his punch. In the grimdark setting, an average guardsman, not to include the Elysian shock troops, the Karskin or the Tempestus Scions, is normally equipped with light armor as his or her personal battle gear. The standard armor for a guardsman is called flak armor, which consists of a series of layered plates made from a combination of plasteel and flak weave, which are layered one on top of another. This armor provides decent upper body, head and shin protection against shrapnel and small arms fire. The primary weapon issued to most guardsmen is called the lasgun, which is a reliable and mass-produced energy weapon firing laser beams. It is powered by a rechargeable power pack and has the penetration power of a 50 caliber round and an effective range of between 200 to 300 meters as per the lore and also as per the Dark Heresy game. And as for the UNSC Marines from Halo, it is hard to really get a solid number on how effective their armor really is, but we can make a guess. The Marine battle dress uniform is equipped with one of various models of ballistic armor at multiple points, including the torso, the shoulders and the shins. Their armor plate is made of a new titanium alloy, which would be enough to only deflect smaller caliber rounds. Plasma and other energy beams can easily pass through unhindered. The helmet may be mounted with various accessories such as holographic tactical eyepiece, polarized tactical goggles, flashlights, or a night vision device. The standard issue weapon for the UNSC Marine Corps is the MA5 assault rifle series, which can be outfitted with a grenade launcher or an underslung shotgun. These MA5 series rifle uses a 7.62 into 51mm full metal jacket armor-piercing rounds as bullets, which have an effective range of 300 meters. Lastly, Star Trek. We have yet to see any soldier with heavy or even armor on. It's just them with a tightly fitted uniform holding a phaser. So we can talk about the weapons. Most phasers were classified as particle weapons and they fire Nadian particle beams. The beam could stun, heat, kill, or disintegrate living creatures. It could damage shields or other systems and even cut through a starship hull. The beam could be focused to a single spot or widened to impact a large area. So this single weapon can be recalibrated for various scenarios. While the maximum range is 400 meters, for stun, the effective range for kill shots would be under 100 meters or maybe a little bit more than 100 meters for the Type 3 phaser rifle, the bigger ones. So basically the infantry personal armors would not fare well against any of the other standard firearms carried by their respective soldiers in these 4 universes. In an open field battle, let's take a look at weapons. Range is quite often the determining factor, and this one surprisingly goes to the UNSC Marines with their effective range of 300 meters, beating the Grimdark's last gun of between 200 to 300 meters, Star Wars of 100 plus meter blaster, and the short range phasers of Star Trek. Now before we go into how the different armies approach warfare, we should at least take a look at the different vehicles and weapons of war that they possess. Now here let's take a look at the UNSC Marine Corps. Firstly, they employ a range of tanks, artillery, and aircraft to ensure battlefield superiority. Their primary tank is the M808 Scorpion, a versatile and heavily armored main battle tank equipped with a 90mm high-velocity cannon, and also with machine guns for both anti-armor and anti-infantry roles. For artillery support, the M9 Wolverine provides anti-air and ground bombardment capabilities with its rocket pods. The Marine Corps, the aircraft include the Pelican dropships, which serve as both a transport and a gunship, capable of rapid deployment of troops and vehicles, and the AV-14 Hornet is used for air support and reconnaissance missions. These units together ensure the UNSC Marines can adapt to a wide range of combat scenarios, providing both mobility and firepower. The Imperial Army of Star Wars relies heavily on a combination of tanks, artillery, and aircraft to maintain dominance on the battlefield. The all-terrain vehicles, the AT, ATs, and all the other derivations serve as the primary armored units, providing immense firepower and troop transport capabilities. For artillery, the self-propelled heavy artillery turbo laser are commonly deployed to provide suppressive fire and support to infantry units. The Imperial Army depends on Navy for aircraft mostly, but are able to freely use dropships under their own command. This combination of heavy armor, powerful artillery, and aircraft allows the Imperial Army to project power across a wide range of combat situations. Now, the Astra Militarum boasts a vast array of tanks, artillery, and aircraft to wage war on countless battlefields across the galaxy. The Lehman Russ battle tank is their mainstay, with the Chimera also being the most common armored personnel carriers. These are both heavily armored and versatile tanks equipped with battle cannons and secondary weapons such as heavy bolters or las cannons. Artillery units include the Basilisk, a self-propelled artillery piece armed with a powerful earth-shaker cannon, capable of long-range bombardments. For air support, the Valkyrie is a key asset in providing aerial fire support and rapid troop deployment alongside the Storm Eagles. Additionally, the Vulture gunship offers heavy firepower for ground attacks and anti-armor operations, as well as there are other aircrafts that provide air superiority. These units, with their mix of durability, firepower, and mobility, allow the Imperial Guard to engage in a wide variety of warfare, from rapid assaults to protracted sieges. Now, for Star Trek, the only vehicles of war that are seen, as far as we know, are the all-terrain vehicles and the shuttles, which are both used for transport when Scotty can't beam them up. Now, except for Trek, all the other 3 franchises have an extensive array of ground-based weapon systems, which includes tanks, artillery, transport, and fire support. It is hard to say which ones have the best though, but technologically the UNSC Marines would be on the lower end, and Star Wars and 40K would be up there hand in hand, with Star Wars maybe having better walkers and all-terrain vehicles and tanks, since we are not including the Knights and Titans of 40K, and Warhammer would definitely have better artillery and a free command of aircraft, which for Star Wars the Imperial Army has to rely heavily on the Navy. Now that we are done with weapon systems, let's take a look at how these armies wage war. Here we are talking about combat doctrine. We are talking about how each army fights in a battle and in a prolonged war. So here we will start first with Starfleet's ground forces. These soldiers of the Federation and Starfleet are often engaging in short-duration, specialized assault operations, as most of the work would be already done by starships. These missions are typically executed with small, highly trained units that focus on precision strikes rather than large-scale battles. Their operations often involve advanced technology and coordination with starship support, allowing them to achieve their objectives quickly and efficiently. Their emphasis is on minimizing casualties and achieving tactical goals through superior strategy and technological advantage, as well as getting the surprise. On the other hand, the Halo UNSC Marines employ a doctrine that emphasizes mobility and defensive maneuvers even when on the offensive. They are really good at rapid deployment, using the mobility provided by the UNSC Navy, including the Pelican dropships, to conduct amphibious and airborne operations. Their tactics often involve securing beachheads or landing zones in planets quickly, then establishing defensive positions to repel counterattacks. They utilize a combination of firepower, maneuverability, and fortified positions to maintain an advantage over their enemies, which is mainly the Covenant and later the Forerunners. Their combat strategy is flexible, allowing them to adapt to various battlefield conditions. Now for the Galactic Empire, the Imperial Army in Star Wars relies heavily on armored warfare, with iconic vehicles like the AT-AT walkers playing a central role. These massive walkers provide heavy firepower and are used to break through enemy defenses and fortifications. They also use a wide range of TIE fighters and TIE bombers. The Imperial Army troopers are often considered second-line troops, and they follow behind these armored units to secure and hold captured territory. The doctrine focuses on overwhelming force and intimidation, using numbers and heavy armor to dominate the battlefield. So the combination of mechanized units and infantry support creates a force designed to crush resistance through superior firepower and tactical deployment, and that is their main type of warfare. Now lastly, the Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard. They employ a diverse range of warfare tactics, from short-duration assaults to century-spanning attrition warfare, depending on the type of conflict they are in. Their combat doctrine is highly adaptable, reflecting the vast and varied threats they face, and their combat doctrines also differ from one regiment to another. The Krieg might have a trench warfare kind of combat doctrine, while the Cadian shock troops, they might have more of a modern type of shock assault, while the Morian Guard and the Armageddon Legions have a way different view of combat. So they can execute rapid strikes with specialized squads or battalions, and even engage in protracted sieges with their immense numbers and heavy artillery. The Guard, the Imperial Guard, utilizes everything from infantry waves, human wave attacks, and armored columns to aerial support and super heavy tanks with mechanized infantry to get the superior position in battlefields. Their strategy often involves overwhelming enemies with sheer numbers and relentless pressure, supported by a vast array of specialized regiments and war machines. They are capable of adapting to any combat scenario, whether it's blitzkrieg-style assaults or grinding trench warfare, ensuring the survival and dominance of the Imperium across the planets of the galaxy. So now, after the long discussion, let's take a look at the comparison in a nutshell. When talking about personal battle gear and weapons, the soldiers from 3 of them, except Star Trek, all wear combat armor, which might look good but would provide little protection to the high-caliber equivalent rounds that all of them fire with their weapons. For range, surprisingly, the MA5 assault rifles of the UNSC Marines get the best range, with upgraded modern-day bullet projectiles, as compared to the energy ones from the other ones. Across the board, all of them have a good array of vehicles except for Star Trek again. Here, the Astra Militarum would beat them all due to their large numbers of air superiority bombers and aerial fire support aircraft. Now, the Star Wars Imperial Army might have them beat with heavy armor like tanks and heavy walkers due to the lack of the Knights and the Titans in this comparison. So now, I don't want to be the guy who chants 40k all day long, but the next 2 criteria also goes to the Astra Militarum. The numbers game, which for them is the tens of millions versus the thousands, and also the combat doctrine, which for the Astra Militarum there is a wide range of warfare across the galaxy. But this I can say, for equal number of troops for each army, things might just go to the other universes for the win. So now we have come to the end of the Sci-Fi Infantry comparison. Now if you like this video, then watch this other one as well, and do check out our channel for other sci-fi and Warhammer content. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, boys.